Hey everybody, Dave here. Hope you're having an awesome day. So a buddy of mine just got a new rock crawler RC truck by Vanquish, and it is a super sweet vehicle. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to do like a paint job for your YouTube channel?" I said, "Well, I'm actually kind of dedicating the year to robots." And the more I looked at it, there's actually a little driver in the cockpit, and I was like, "Hey, what if we made a robot for the driver?" And he's like, "Let's do that." And then the more I looked into it, I was like, "Oh, there's actually 3D printed kits that you can buy, and you can actually like have the heads turn and stuff." So I said, "What if we just built like a robot head that actually turned with little micro servos?" So I am by no means an expert at RC or remote control or servos, but together with my buddy who is kind of just getting into this hobby as well, we came up with a pretty cool build. So this video will be, I'm going to do the paint job, and then I'm going to build the robot, and then at the end we're going to show a little bit of footage of the rock crawling. So let's do it. Okay, so this Vanquish H10 Optic comes with this body panel here. You can see there's little injection molding pins, and so I'm going to use some UV resin and just fill those in. Now the reason I'm doing this is I want my paint job to be really nice and smooth. This typically comes with a sticker set, and the stickers will just cover up those little dimples, but for me, I'm going to go ahead and use this resin, cure it with this UV light, and then I'll have to sand this down. So once I've got it all filled in, I'll just start sanding, and I can tell that I still have some shiny areas, so I'm going to keep sanding. I did some wet sanding, got that nice and smooth, exactly where I want it to be. Wipe it down with some alcohol, get it all cleaned up, and then I'll do that for all the parts. On the truck, it has some extra little components, and I thought, it'd be fun to just kind of do a simple paint job on all this, but it really helps bring it to life. So I wanted this to look like metal strapping holding this down, so I painted that silver. The inside of the fan here, I painted those blades silver. Most people don't even notice that, but it's still kind of cool. The little tank there, just adding a little bit of detail. So here's the body panels. In the backside here, that dark gray is the primer, and then the light gray is the actual body color that we're going with. I'm going to add some waterslide decals. This koala stuff is great. Just adding their company name on there. And this is just to kind of make it look like a fun sponsored truck almost. The underground iron is a little logo that I made for him for his gym that they've got at their shop. Just a kind of fun little graphic design project. Now the body itself, I was sanding this thing, and it was 3D printed by another one of his buddies. It was just really hard to work with, so I thought I'll try some UV resin here. This actually worked well, but it's going to take a lot of resin, so I thought, I have my Anycubic resin, so maybe I can brush it on. This actually worked out a little bit nicer because it is pretty liquidy. I left it out in the sun for half hour or so. Everything hardened up nice. Sprayed it. I did do a little bit of sanding, but for the most part, I got rid of all the lines. Kind of just measuring up the head there, because I'm going to use this little contact lens and quarter capsule to make my head, and I wanted to make sure the height wasn't too big, so kind of just measuring that up. Now it's got these little ridges here, and I thought it would be awesome if it was screwed in, but it doesn't, so I had to go ahead and just snip all that off. And then I thought maybe that'll just clip right in. It didn't, so I had to trim this off. My fingers were really nervous right here, but now that fits in super nice. And I'm going to do a little spacer for the neck, just because it's the way I want it to sit, but it's hitting the chair, and the head's too far forward. So went ahead and got my Dremel out, and I'm just kind of eating away at the back of the chair there. And it looks pretty rough, but the head's going to pretty much block all that. So I like that positioning of the head a lot better. Now I got these little BBs. I'm using them for another project, but they glow in the dark. And because we're doing this in the truck, I don't really have space to put LEDs, so I'm going to use these little BBs. And then my reaming tool. Yes! This thing is awesome! Thanks again, Dave. This is the best tool ever. I'm just reaming out a little hole there so I can put the glow-in-the-dark eye in. And I love how this... I'm not going to glue any of this in just yet because I want to paint everything first. I'm also going to do one more small hole to add a second little BB, like it's a sensor or something. Now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I need to build this head out a little bit. And I have been building for quite some time, and look at this. Are you kidding me? Dave, you know you got to sand this down, right? I just got in a rush and forgot to sand it. So sometimes slowing down just makes things go a little bit faster. So I did sand it, glued it, did a little kicker. That works a whole lot better. And again, it's just to start adding some greeblies onto this. I have these little metal connectors. One of my viewers sent me a huge box of all kinds of little goodies. So thanks, Darren. I super appreciate it. These are amazing. So many antennas. Oh, I love it. Anyways, gluing on some of these little beads. I use these a lot in my builds for rivets and just little sensors and parts. Adding another little piece here. And I'm going to drill a hole through this because I'm going to run wires through these a little bit later. So I'm just running the drill through there. I'm going to use a little bit of guitar string so it has kind of like this mechanical feel to it. I'm going to kind of bend that around. So I'm going to put another one of those in the contact lens piece here. This one I actually drilled the hole all the way through, and I'm countersinking that little piece. Bending the guitar string. Do not use your nice clippers. Use actual wire clippers because I've ruined a pair of nice model snips because this guitar string is not nice to those. So I might trim that down a little bit. It's sticking out a little bit far, but this is looking pretty cool how I want it to look. This is an antenna that was in that box of goodies. So again, love boxes of goodies. Just gluing a little piece of wire on this side, just trying to get this really nice mechanical feel to this. And yeah, this is looking really great. I was about to prime it. I was like, I need one more little thing here, maybe to make the antenna feel a little bit more connected. Now that's looking really nice. So I'm not going to put that in just yet because I'm going to prime this. And while this is drying, I'm going to go ahead and start painting the bodies and the cockpit. So I'm painting the cockpit black. The body is like a light tan, so it kind of matches the light gray of the truck. The head here, I painted this kind of army green. And you know, if you've seen any of my videos, I've got to do some weathering on this thing. So just taking a little bit of silver and doing some chipping all around the entire head. This part here is so fun to just see the transformation of just this plain solid color to adding some really nice vibrancy to it. And of course I have to do my Vallejo wash, or I can't remember, this might be no, this is a Vallejo. Sometimes I use Citadel, then they use the Vallejo Rust. So cool. Adding a black wash onto the silver portion. This is kind of the bottom of his head, maybe his jaw. And then I added a little bit more wash kind of where I connect them, just so it kind of fills that together. And then I took this brown kiwi shoe polish and I covered the entire jumpsuit because it was a little too clean. I want him to look like he's driven some hard miles. Now the model itself, the 3D file, has these little holes. I'm just using guitar string to show you how we're going to do this, but string will go through here and that allows the arms to move. So I had to paint these all up, painted the gloves brown, almost like leather gloves. Now there are these little instrument panels, so I did go ahead and print off some little speedometers and odometers. And I thought, you know what, I should do a little bit of UV resin so it looks like an actual lens. There was a little start button thing. I thought that would be pretty cool to be red. And then there's this monitor here, and I thought, well, let's print off a little navigation thing. So I put a little Elmer's glue on there, glued down the little navigation screen. And I'm also going to do a UV coating on this, and I'm just kind of moving around with the blade, cure that. That looks pretty great. All right, now we're over at my buddy's shop. Here's the servo that we used, and here he is just kind of working on things, putting it together. I'm working on the head at the same time, trying to figure out a way to get the head to move back and forth. He's working on the servos and the steering. And then we started stringing up the arms using a little bungee string there. Love that. And when you get to play with fire, don't play with fire, kids. Okay, so the servo has this little tiny connector on it, so we use the screw anchor to make a nice snug fit, and so we could just slide that right on, and we didn't even have to glue anything. And this is kind of our first maiden voyage of testing it out, and there was a lot of like, yes, this is awesome! So the next day, he put it all together. He's got tons of wires that he had to stuff up in there. He said it was kind of a pain, but he got it all to work pretty nice. And he's just adding his tires on there. He's got some really cool custom rims that he got. And man, it looks so great. And then he did like a little test run here. I think he's going to show off his little lights there. They're crazy bright. but just watching him in action moving, so cool. Okay, I'm not going to lie, this was a really fun build and very educational. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I am no expert in this. If you want to see somebody that's really crazy in the RC world with trucks and stuff, Danny Hewen, I'll leave a link for his stuff. It is just mind-blowing. He is so good. So I'm nowhere at that level, but again, this was really fun just to kind of think through the process and paint this, build this little robot, paint the truck. Yeah, it was cool. So, and it's even cooler to watch this thing run. So let's do some turnaround shots of this, and stay tuned to the very end if you want to see some of the rock crawling in action. My buddy actually just does a little bit of just boulder crawling and stuff, so stay tuned to the very end for that. And as always, it is a great day to be a toy nerd, RC nerd, whatever kind of nerd you are. Go out there and make awesome stuff. Later.